Hello everybody, it's fantastic to be here. My name is Laura Collier and I am the Creative Director and Programmer of Shakespeare North Playhouse. And it's brilliant to be here as part of the Prescot Festival online this year. And we thought we would start by introducing ourselves. My name's Laura, as I say, and I joined Shakespeare North Playhouse in October. I'm a contemporary new work theatre producer and I've worked in theatres around the country, from the Traverse Theatre in Edinburgh through to the National Theatre in London and the Globe and Leeds Playhouse and Battersea Arts Centre. So a huge range of theatres, and it's just the most fantastic privilege to be working with Shakespeare North Playhouse. Ian.
Thank you, Laura. Good morning to you. Good morning to everybody. My name's Ian Tabbron. I've been working in theatre for over 40 years now, 20 years actually in the sector itself, working in a range of theatres like Laura, from Manchester Library Theatre to Pitlochry Theatre in Scotland, Delphi on the Strand, Southampton on the South Coast. So huge range of places, different places. Then I worked for 20 years in the Arts Council as a theatre officer, and I also had a particular responsibility for capital programmes, which is why I was really interested in this building, which is, in my view, the most exciting building in England for the last 50 years.
We thought we would start by bringing you up to speed on the build itself, and then I'm going to talk a bit about the cultural planning. And like Ian says, it is the most incredible project, and I, for one, have never felt so lucky to be working on such a phenomenal building. It has such a strong sense of place and ambition. It's incredibly exciting. So Ian, can we start with you, please? And I'd like to ask you, please, can you just tell us, where is the building project at so far?
Well, remarkably, despite COVID and Brexit, both of which have had pretty catastrophic impacts on the building industry overall, we're doing very well in terms of the programme. We're pretty much on target to deliver in spring 2022. And when Laura and I visited the site, we've always been more and more impressed and excited by progress that's being made. So the building is modern wraparound. It's very classic and simple on the outside, but inside, at the heart of it, it's got this remarkable replica of an Inigo Jones masterpiece theatre, Cockpit and Core, which is a double octagon that started off being a cockpit originally in 16th century England, Henry VIII's cockpit, and then successive monarchs, Elizabeth, James, Charles, used it more and more as an entertainment space, and Inigo Jones was commissioned to create this extraordinary Renaissance screen and staging based on Palladio's work in Vicenza. And we will have the most exact replica of a 17th century theatre in the world. But when you take the Frontini, the scenic screen, away, you also get a remarkable democratic, simple space, theatre in the round, that can be used for contemporary work. So we're very lucky to have such flexibility there. But additionally, we've got a double height studio theatre, black box, but a really, really lovely space, which Laura and I both love. We've got under the stage a digital gallery, which will be, we hope, showing a lot of films and a lot of activity, which is up to date, state of the art, we hope. We're going to have a dedicated education space, which is very large, very flexible, mainly for informal education, but we'll have work in there for toddlers right up to seniors doing education programs. We've got an outdoor space, the performance garden, which is 120 seats and is being sponsored, paid for by the Ken Dodd family. And finally, we've got a piazza, which will be a south-facing, lovely area just next to the cafe where people can sit and look out over the wooded area and the 17th century church. So all in all, it's a remarkable palette on which we're going to paint a cultural programme.
Thanks, Ian. And lots of people will know about the historic background, but I don't think we should assume, why should everybody know about it? So could you just tell us a bit more about the relationship to Shakespeare North Playhouse and Prescot and William Shakespeare and Elizabethan theatre, not in tremendous detail, but in a kind of the nutshell, the headlines?
Yeah, it's quite quite difficult to keep it concise because it's a remarkably complex story. But in short, the Earls of Derby, who for 600 years have had a base in Knowsley Hall, as most people will know, very, very close to Prescot, they had, in the 16th, 17th century, they had very, very important companies of actors working for them, probably the most important of which was Lord Strange's men. Lord Strange is a title of the sons of the Earl of Derby, and that company certainly did produce, with Shakespeare directly involved, the early plays of the playwright when he was also an actor, and he would have acted with them at that stage in the late 16th century. And later they went on to become part, or the 6 of them from Lord Strange's men became part of Shakespeare's first great theatre company that inhabited the globe. And the other interesting link is that Prescot itself had the only purpose-built theatre in Elizabethan times outside of London. So it was obviously a bit of a powerhouse for theatre in those times. And we're honouring that in building a theatre which is no more than a few hundred yards from where the 16th century theatre was stood.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ian.
So I think it's your turn to answer some questions, Laura. Would you tell us a little bit about what your role is going to be with Shakespeare North Playhouse and with Prescot?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I say, I started in October, and I feel like I'm joining a creative conversation that has been going on for many, many years. And I think the role of a producer is to be a host, really. You're hosting creativity and ideas and events and productions, and you tend to when it's going well, you tend to be at the very, very start of an idea. And then you almost see it through and project manage it all the way through to the moments where the audience have left and they've taken their memories home with them. And then you go through a process of evaluating and thinking about whether or not that production, that idea worked, which is very important because you need to have that reflection time to make the most out of everything that you do. And I should just pause actually and say that Ian and I are recording this from the 5th floor of the KMBC offices in Huyton. And I'm looking out the window and I can see the crane to Shakespeare North Playhouse next to the church in Prescot. And it's, yeah, absolutely thrilling. But it also just explains the slightly blank walls behind us. And we haven't got lots of beautiful pictures of Shakespeare up, which maybe we should have done, but it's a little bit cream, but that's okay. So in terms of my role, the main part of my role is to think about how the theatre is culturally populated for its opening year. So that's from summer 2022 through to summer 2023. And the biggest priority is to make sure that this is a theatre for everybody and that there is something at this theatre for everybody. And that can happen in many, many different ways. Shakespeare North Playhouse has 2 preoccupations. Well, it has many, but I'm going to focus in on 2. One of them is how can Shakespeare North Playhouse be a place for people to practice their everyday creativity? And that might mean that you are involved in performing yourself or a project in which you're engaged with your community group or your school. And we really want to embed the possibility that you can creatively yourself take part in Shakespeare North Playhouse through a range of different programmes. And then the other area that we're very preoccupied with is professional artists who are craftspeople, who have been practicing their whole lives, and that fantastic, important part of theatre, which is seeing a show at 7:30, having a meal beforehand, and seeing a wonderful production and taking those memories home, where your role as an audience member is to watch this piece and absorb it and allow it to have its impact on you. And then I'm also interested in what happens when professional artists and non-professional artists come together and make work together. So you may see at Shakespeare North Playhouse some fantastic community productions working with some of the country's greatest actors and playwrights and other theatre makers of different kinds. And I say playwrights because whilst Shakespeare will be the cornerstone of our work and the inspiration for really everything that we do, we are going to be working with a wide range of contemporary theatre makers, including new playwrights as well. So it's very, very important that Shakespeare, The brilliant thing about Shakespeare is that there are so many different facets to his creativity and the language and the canon and the prose that I could say that anything that we do at Shakespeare North Playhouse is connected, because the themes are so wide-ranging. But what I would say is there will be moments in our year when we focus very directly on Shakespeare's canon, and we do produce Shakespearean plays in collaboration with other theatres around the country. And then there will be other moments in our year where you may see something that has nothing seemingly to do with Shakespeare and is perhaps a fantastic comedy night or a music gig, or another event that is the most important thing, that it matters to the people who are coming to see it. So we have Shakespeare as our inspirational cornerstone, but actually our audience are our common thread. They're the people who we need to make sure are entertained throughout the year. And it was interesting hearing Ian talking about the different spaces within the building, because there are many different spaces, and the Cockpit and Court Theatre is going to be absolutely astonishing and will be recognised throughout the world as a unique performance space. And what I would say is, as an audience member, I think you will want to go and sit in it and look at it and sort of feel the environment and the atmosphere of it and learn about it. But it's also really, really important that we have creative experiences in there that are that really make you feel alive and connected to the work that you're seeing. So all of the work in the Cockpit Theatre will in some way need to respond to that really bespoke Elizabethan architecture. And also listening to you, Ian, talking about the different spaces. I love talking to artists about all the different possibilities for the spaces. And I'm lucky enough in my role to be having many conversations with many artists about the theatre, up and down the country and in the Northwest in particular. And everybody is responding in a very warm way, a very interested way. And it's important that we talk about the theatre spaces, but I also love thinking about the building as a whole site of creative possibilities, and whether there are moments during our opening year when we can also have festivals in there that also bring the whole building to life. 2022 is a very, very special year for Knowsley, as I'm sure most of the people watching this will know that it's our Borough of Culture. So this is going to be an exceptional year with the theatre opening, with Borough of Culture. There will be culture coming out of every single nook and cranny of Knowsley, and I'm so excited and thrilled by that. In some ways, the bigger challenge, once we are open, is what happens in the years to follow, because 2022 will have a wonderful momentum around it. But we really need to think very carefully about our relationships beyond 2022 and how we can work with artists and audiences for the long term. So nothing that happens in Shakespeare North Playhouse is a one-trick pony. We want you to come to Shakespeare North Playhouse to enjoy it, and then to come again and again and again and again. I'll pause there.
Well, I mean, thank you very much. The philosophy and the values that underpin what's going to be happening at Shakespeare North. Could you tell us a little bit more about when we'll find out about the programme and its details, so people can take advantage of all these wonderful opportunities?
Yeah, so we will be announcing a good part of our programme this autumn. So we'll be announcing our main opening events, our main opening productions this coming autumn. So that's when you'll actually be able to get on your laptop and click and buy a ticket. However, we are doing lots and lots of work already in terms of various projects and creative ideas, and one of which is already up and running is with the Open Eye Gallery in Liverpool. And we are so excited to be a part of this. This is working with a socially engaged photographer who will work with communities in Prescot to capture and photograph our high streets over a period of several years. And so our opening productions and our opening events will be a part of that project. So that's a national project as part of the High Street Heritage Action Zone national celebrations, I think. So, and the other interesting thing to say about the Open Eye Gallery connection is that for me, I'm excited that one of our first public collaborations is actually not with another theatre, it's with a photography gallery. And I think that says a lot about how wide-ranging we want our creative relationships to be. So yes, of course, we'll be working with all the brilliant theatre makers and theatres up and down the country. You know, we are so lucky in the UK to have such a rich a rich ecology of theatre making practice, but we also have a fantastic visual arts scene and music scene and comedy and photography, and the list goes on and on and on across art form. So how can Shakespeare North Playhouse learn from other art forms and other ways of working? So Open Eye Gallery is just a fantastic partner. We're also, as some of you may know, working with the BBC's One Show as well, and we've been running a national playwriting competition for the ages of 8 to 16, I think it is, and we're about to reach our final judging round of that, and we had hundreds of applications, and this has been narrowed down to a final 9, which will then be narrowed down to a final 3, and those chosen 3 productions will form part of our opening programme in 2022, which is absolutely thrilling. So we are already up and running with several things. Conversations are in abundance, and I can't wait to be announcing some more of our programme. And also to say that I am so enjoying working with the Prescot Festival as well. And I live in Stockport, and I'm still very much getting to know the area. And I think one of the frustrations for me over the last few months has not been able to just be here on a daily basis and to be walking around and talking to people about the theatre. So I'm really excited about being much more present now that we're allowed to be, and really getting out there and talking to more people.
Thanks very much, Laura. That was so lovely. And like you, I'm very much looking forward to meeting real people involved in real arts events. But what we're doing this year is still going to be terrific and whetting our appetite further. So looking forward to joining you and everybody else that tunes in to the Prescot Festival this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much.